If you had asked anyone about the live event, you probably would have gotten a mixed range of emotions, going from it was actually pretty cool to some people saying this is the worst event or the worst thing that the developers have done ever. However, the developers, as you can clearly see, they're going to do it again in basically four days. 4 days, 8 minutes, and counting down, 77 minutes and 57 seconds. As you can see, it was previously a countdown towards Halloween Night 1, but they've updated it to say Admin Abuse Part 2. This wasn't actually clarified after the first part of the admin abuse that was last week on Saturday. They've now updated it so that it is going to be 1 week after that. The developers did say that there was going to be one next Saturday, but they didn't confirm it, but now they have confirmed it. And actually, I think I might have accidentally triggered Below Natural to actually announce this, because I'll reveal in due course why I kind of knew about what time it was going to be at. But the developers have made it so that it was at 6 PM, or this part 2 abuse is going to be at 6 PM Eastern Standard Time, which is around 10 o'clock in the evening for me, because usually I'm 5 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time, which means that this should be really at 11 PM for me, 11 PM in the evening. However, I think New York and the Eastern Starboard of the United States has just gone back in time, as in they've jumped back a time, meaning that, yeah, we're slightly out of sync until we go back ourselves. In any case, I should be in Washington, D.C. when this occurs, so actually, in my mind, this is at 6 PM for me. Now, the reason why this is at 6 PM rather than 12 PM, I think, is likely due to the developers listening to other players. So, at 12 PM, this was really inaccessible to players in Asia, because it would have been at least 3 or 4 AM in the morning, and nobody's waking up that early just to play a live event. However, with this being at 6 PM, it is slightly more favourable. It's still in the morning, but it's a Sunday for them, so it's about, I believe, 10 AM in, like, Japan. I'm not entirely sure how far ahead they are of New York and Washington, D.C., but it should be a slightly more friendlier time towards Asia. Now, if you're a rich Emirati living in Qatar or Dubai, unfortunately, this time is not really optimal for you. I think it's about 4 AM for you, which is pretty bad. And for people in Europe, it is just about bearable for those who stay up really late. However, I think the 6 PM time is more favourable towards Americans, because not only is it basically prime time for the Eastern Starboard of the United States, it also allows people on the western side, so that's California, that's Texas, I think, and Oregon and Washington State. That allows those players to actually play the game, because I think previously it was pretty inconvenient for them. I think it was about 5 AM in the morning for them, for certain people in like California, for example, meaning that potentially with this Admin Abuse Part 2, there could be a higher CCU or concurrent users on Tower Defense Simulator, because we did actually break it previously, but more on that later. So a 6 PM Eastern Standard Time admin abuse session is actually slightly more favourable for the developers in terms of getting more players to actually be playing. It just inconveniences a different amount of people. Now, you may see this as a good thing, you may see it as a bad thing. However, ultimately, I think the developers, they're probably going to spread out the admin abuse sessions so that basically allows more people to actually play the game. And it probably just so happens that they probably know from statistics 6 PM Eastern Standard Time is perhaps the highest capacity, or the amount of players that are playing Roblox at that time is probably at its highest. Now, I do also know that previously that some other games were also doing live events, not right after Tower Defense Simulator. A couple of these were like 6 hours, 3 hours, 12 hours after Tower Defense Simulator. The 3 hours parts, it's Plants vs, I think, Brain Rot or something like that. Those, that is actually going to be the similar time to when Tower Defense Simulator is going to do it. However, because all of these games are doing it 9 or 12 hours after Tower Defense Simulators ended, I'd have to assume that maybe the developers didn't do theirs that late, either to avoid these games doing their live events, or the developers just wanted to get statistics and just wanted to see what would happen if they did a live event. But as you can see, the live event games, yeah, they populate the front of the game. As you can see, they have 352,000 players, 6.2 million players, 4.75 million players, 1 million players. Like, Tower Defense Simulator is probably not going to get that far, but with Tower Defense Simulator's live event, guess how many players were in the event. It was 180,000 players, and do bear in mind that this is a record. I believe the previous record was 150,000 during the Hexscape event, whereas now, it being 180,000, it is the highest that's ever been for a Tower Defense Simulator. And looking at the statistics here, it would place it above Forsaken, it would place it slightly below Adopt Me, but on that day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it would have been the 10th most popular game at the time that the live event was running, which is no mean feat in itself, and you can easily see why some players, and the developers most prominently, see this as a pretty good thing. Now, gameplay-wise, for most players, the live event wasn't that good, because, well, I've heard a lot of complaints from people saying that they weren't able to, like, beat the event in the first place because, well, the admin abuse came at the wrong time for them, they weren't able to find a team properly, and, like, they died because the monster wasn't in the correct lane. That is all very true. However, I think the developers, they are going to change some stuff. I'm going to go through some of the stuff that has been addressed to the developers later, but in terms of how fun it was, not in a pure statistical sense of having, like, all of the skins in the game, I think it was pretty fun. I think it's the most fun I've had in Tower Defense Simulator for, like, quite a while. The developers just ruining everyone's game, I guess. But in terms of players actually wanting to play the game and beat the quote event, yeah, many players are pissed off that the developers didn't give prior warning and that you just had to assume what the developers were doing to actually beat the event, and it was a limited time thing, an hour and a half, or close to 2 hours actually, for everyone to beat the event. And again, many players, they were working apparently, which is fair enough. I know, like, the times weren't that convenient for everyone, and it's never going to be convenient for everyone, given the fact that live events, they aren't really that convenient for the vast majority of the world. It is a limited time thing, lasting maybe at max like 12 hours, 6 hours maybe for most other games, I believe. So someone is going to get disappointed, and there are going to be complainers, and those are going to be the most vocal players when it comes to live events. However, the statistics don't really lie. 180,000 players being a record for Tower Defense Simulator, and the developers making the next admin abuse session at a prime time probably means that the record is probably going to be beaten. I'm maybe expecting 200,000 players in the next live event. I'm not sure yet, and given the fact that the bans correct is going to be repeated, and maybe the developers would have learned their lesson doing some admin abusing stuff, I think there is a very good chance that 200,000 will be broken, maybe 250,000, we'll see. Now, considering the polls made on Tower Defense Simulator Discord, actually, they're kind of favourable. I mean, obviously not this one. So, without considering outside factors, admin abuse, time limits, etc., was the event fair? No, way too difficult and unbalanced. 69% of players thought that. Yes, it was difficult but balanced. The testers, they did say that the event is not impossible. This was without, like, the admin abuse, or like the admins giving everyone cash and giving everyone a monster, for example. It was balanced to be incredibly difficult, aka to be beaten with 6 high-level players. We specifically tested it with all towers allowed except for event towers, jester excluded, and the skill tree banned. If you're struggling, find players around your level and form a strategy. Lots of careful planning and balancing went into this. However, do bear in mind, an hour and a half, not a lot of players could probably organically beat it. But the next poll, while considering outside factors, did you enjoy this event? Actually, 63% of players actually did enjoy it. Now, that is like 2,500 players. That's not massive. That's not representative of everyone who played it. If you looked at the peak CCU, obviously that's 180,000. Let's safely say that maybe 200,000 players played this event. It's not obviously a representative sample of that, but on the Tower Defense Simulator Discord, people are pretty negative. So 63% of players saying yes, they enjoyed the event. I think that's actually pretty high. And the major things that the developers have been told, well, the consensus for the community is that it should not have been time limited if it was going to be so difficult. Fair enough. Parties should have been able to go up to 6 without the admin mode game pass, which I didn't understand. Apparently, some people weren't able to form players, or a group of players, a party of 6 without the admin mode game pass. The only problem is, I've done it. I mean, obviously I have the admin game pass, but I've also heard from other players that they were able to form a player or a group of 6 without the admin mode game pass. I think that there may have been some matchmaking thing. So I think if you did have the admin mode game pass, you were able to randomly join a game of 6 players. However, if you didn't have the admin mode game pass, you were still able to get 6 players in the server if you were the group leader of a group of players or party of players. Again, it meant that if you were just randomly matchmaking with other people, you weren't able to get a group of 6 players, which, yeah, that would have been unfair. And the developers should host admin views at multiple times a day so people in other time zones can enjoy and unlock the exclusive skins. The only problem is that would be too much effort for the developers on a weekend, no less. But also, the developers would need to be awake for nearly 24 hours just to do the event in every single time zone. Do bear in mind that they live in one time zone. They all live in Eastern Standard Time in the United States of America. They can only do what's convenient for them. So I don't think the last point is going to be realistic. So in that case, I think what people want really is just for the live event to last a lot longer. Well, perhaps not the live event part of it, but certainly the event part of it, the exclusive map that comes with the live event. I think many players would want to see that to last at least like 24 hours at the very least. But the live event portion itself, like admin abusing and stuff like that, I don't think people actually did enjoy it. So there's not really any negativity around that. It's just the event itself, because there's an exclusive reward attached to it, namely a banned crate. It does mean that for that specific reward, and for like the rewards down the line, if you did not get it during the admin abuse part 1, it means that you cannot get all of the banned crate skins, apparently, in the future, which many people actually would probably find annoying. And given the fact that there were only 180,000 players who were playing the live event, which isn't a small amount, don't get me wrong, but it does mean that 180,000 players, at the very least, the number probably is a lot smaller because not every single one of those players actually beat the event. It does mean that at the very least, 180,000 players can only say that they've completed Tower Defense Simulator for all of the banned skins in Tower Defense Simulator. And it doesn't seem like the developers are going to rectify that. I mean, it's not really much to rectify given that this is what they intended, but it certainly does piss off a lot of players, which I can kind of see. But yeah, don't be too surprised if live events in Tower Defense Simulator become a regular thing given the amount of players it draws in.